Welcome to another episode of iPrint 3D. Today's episode is sponsored by Tango from Voxeldance. Tango is a slicer software that helps beginners and experts alike to navigate the world of 3D printing with built-in preset parameters and presets that actually work. Even beginners can start to print with just one click. Check it out today at voxeldance.com/tango or see the link in our video's description. Hello everyone and welcome to the last episode of the Tango Voxeldance episodes. And today we're talking about how to set up a new printer as well as how to do manual supporting. In order to set up a new printer, you need to click on the button called Platform Definitions. In there, you'll see your existing printers that are already set up, or you can click that little round icon with the plus sign in the middle, and that will allow you to add a new one. So let's say we wanted to do that and go ahead and add a new printer. If we click that button, it's going to give us a list of manufacturers that we can add printers from. And Tango has a pretty wide-versed list of applicable printers that you can pick from in order to quickly set up and get ready out of the box. Now, that's not to say that the settings are going to be 100% to the manufacturer's spec, because I found a few instances where they had listed a few settings, the manufacturer had listed a slightly different setting. So I don't know if this is because of these are settings that worked for them and they simply transferred through, or it's a similar thing like Lychee Slicer where the community contributes to the actual worthiness of a particular setting and whether or not it works very well. Of course, like any other program, you can change the monetary amount, the dollar amount, and the value of the resin, as well as the resin settings themselves, so you can ensure that you're using the proper information for whatever print that you're trying to build. Of course, today we're working off of the Photon Mono X2, which we recently picked up one of those. If you haven't looked at them, by the way, they're a great large printer for the value of what they cost. A 9.1 inch screen and a 7.8 inch actual build surface is pretty darn good. Anyway, when you're about done setting up your printer, you can head on over to that support tab and get started working on your manual supports. Now, just like anything, you're going to want to go ahead and take a look at the pressure zones or the area on the model. They're going to be at a higher or lower angle based on the different color. Now, Tango does a pretty interesting job of doing that by showing you red to orange, and the different heat zones that are applicable there are actually will indicate how much that is actually angled or not. So those are really going to be zones that you're going to want to focus on when you're doing your manual supporting if you choose to do so. Now, Tango has a lot of awesome auto scripting, which we've discussed in our previous episodes, but one of the things we haven't discussed yet is how to actually apply the supporting yourself. And this is one of those things where you just kind of have to kind of play around with it and see how it works for you, and then you'll get the feel for it after a while. It's a little bit different than, say, Lychee Slicer or Chitubox, because you don't click on the supports. You simply click where the anchor is going to be, and then when you apply those, you're actually applying them as a support group, which then group themselves together, and you can then kind of hide them and collectively keep them. Now, again, other programs allow you to do this. They allow you to group stuff and keep, and you can do that. This just natively does it. So when you create the supports anchors and you create your supports, you're literally creating support groups within the support structures that are going to allow you to quickly be able to organize your work. So this is a pretty neat workflow if you're a crazy OCD person like me who absolutely needs to have everything organized perfectly in ways that they can get back to and figure out what they did wrong if something did go wrong with a particular print. Now, one of the things I don't mind about this, because I often work with contact mode in Lychee Slicer, is that you're only looking at where the tips are contacting the model. And so this is kind of good because you have a much better view of the surfaces of the model and you can kind of judge better where you're going to place them. Whereas if you're working with a bunch of support tips and rods and bars everywhere, they kind of get in your way. So after a while, you either need to start hiding them or start adjusting your views as you work through. So this is an interesting workflow method, and I kind of applaud Tango for taking this method all together with their manual flow, because it's not really the most intuitive for beginners, but if you're a professional like me, it's definitely a way to streamline and smooth your workflow, and I think it works pretty well. I don't have any problems with this particular method of applying manual supports. Again, now you can delete them as well. Again, you have to change tools. Everything is on the upper toolbar there. So it is a little bit different than a lot of other slicers in that sense, where you don't just have, add supports, delete supports, etc. One of the reasons why I think some of the other slicers do have the user base that they have is because of some of that user friendliness. This works, it's very accurate, but I also think it's very rigid. So there are some things that the guys at Voxeldance here could probably take a few notes from and maybe improve upon for future versions of the software, like a way to free edit and actually freely move the supports around without having to go into this pseudo editor system. But again, one of the problems with programs like Tango is that it has a lot of functionality crammed into a small application that is technically a slicer. So it might simply be a limitation of what they can do with the application in its current state. But again, I don't know that much about what they've actually done. Once you click apply on the supports, it will create them and they become green when they're selected and pink when they're not selected. It'll also auto-generate a raft based on the default rafting system, which is that hole-based raft, which is actually pretty good. Now, this isn't done by far, but as you can see, you can continue adding and you can go back in and you can continue manipulating and adding. We can go back in, we can add tree supports, we can go back in, we can adjust anchors, we can move supports manually if we want to, we can delete supports, we can mark areas, and we can go back through and we can create new support groups if we want to create areas that are being supported in a different spot, things like that. So it's not as granular as some systems, but it definitely, I think it needs some more flexibility. It's good, it works, it gets the job done, and I do think that you can definitely make use of this as a manual supporting tool. However, I think Tango's strong points definitely lie in its auto-supporting ability and some of its other functionality that works really well, including its repair and hollowing tools that work really well. So, again, I really think it depends on how you want to support your model, but Tango using manual supports could definitely take a little learning curve. If you're coming off of other software such as Chitubox or Lychee Slicer and you're looking for Tango and you're going, okay, I like the auto supports, they work great, but how do I do this manually? What's the next step? And so I think when you start getting into that and you start digging into the manual supporting scenario here, it's not as user-friendly as some of the applications I've used. It works good. You can get the job done. Like I said, you can do tree supports. You can do modular. There are mini supports. There are bracings. There's all kinds of great stuff that are packed into the software, but it is not as user-friendly as other applications that I have used. And so I think that's the one thing that it's going to fall a little short of in some of the application use. However, if you're printing minis and you need something that's going to do bang-up awesome jobs at doing auto supports, it definitely does seem to do a very good job there. Although there are some problems there too. On some of the test prints that we did finally get a chance to take a look at, there were many issues with collision. There were numerous issues with those little nibs that kind of got attached to things. So there were a few things that we kind of wish listed and made note of, so that way when we talk to the guys at Voxeldance, we can give them a little bit of feedback as well. One of the reasons we did this video series was to try to contrast and compare against Chitubox, which is one of their bigger competitors. And we think that the software is actually a little bit superior to Chitubox in some of its feature sets, but we also feel that Chitubox has had some more time in the field and therefore actually might be a little bit more proficient in some of its functionality. But again, Tango is still working its way up. It's got a great auto support setup. There's a lot of things you can do with it that the other software doesn't do as well. So it's really what you are comfortable with working with. And I think that matters a lot. So having an option, I think, like Tango is important. Anyway, we enjoyed using the software quite a lot. We enjoyed getting into it and digging into it, learning some more new things about the printer world, and we learned a lot. We definitely stretched our legs a little bit and figured out that there's way more to this software than meets the eye. It is not as basic as some of the other suites we've used, and it's got a lot more behind the curtain than one might think. So if you're interested in giving it a try, we do have the link in our description of these videos. Every single one of them has the link in it. Please feel free to check them out. I believe there is a free trial you can check out. Give it a shot. You know, if you're not using a slicer that you already like, maybe this will be the one for you. But other than that, if you normally follow our channel and check us out, we regularly do teaching and tutorial work on all sorts of stuff. And we do a lot of stuff in Lychee Slicer as far as that goes. So feel free to check us out, follow us, comment, and we hope to see you guys watching some more of our videos in the future. And we really enjoyed bringing this educational information to you about Tango. So thanks again so much for watching this series, guys. Have a great one. See you all real soon.